paradrama tales.
You're always the embarrassment. My dad laughed every holiday carving, the turkey while carving me down. So, when I finally bought a dream home with my own money, I did something they never expected. I threw the biggest party of my life, and didn't invite a single one of them. I didn't choose the role. It was assigned quiet odd, the one who never quite fit. At every family dinner, I wasn't the one they asked about school or girlfriends. I was the one they tolerated. I was Eli, the background character in a show I was born into but never cast for. When my brother Daniel got promoted, it was a champagne toast. When Carly had her second kid, there was a slideshow with soft piano music. But when I mentioned a new freelance gig or a startup I was helping launch, it was met with raised brows and half laughs. Still trying that internet thing, Daniel would say, grinning like he'd just landed a punch. Mom would smile with tight lips, then gently pivot the conversation to someone else's mortgage, marriage, or milestone. It wasn't just what they said, it was how they looked at me. Like I was a stray dog they were fond of, but didn't trust to stay clean. I stopped bringing up work. I stopped explaining what a SaaS product was or why remote consulting wasn't code for unemployed. I shrank myself to fit the space they left for me. The joke, the weirdo, the embarrassment. That was the word my dad always used, half laughing, half serious. Try not to embarrass us this year, Eli, he'd say before big family events. So I played my part, set the table, carried the folding chairs, smiled when they made me the punchline. And every time I told myself, maybe this year will be different. But it never was. They didn't see me. They saw a version of me they had frozen in their heads years ago, and they kept feeding that image like it was truth. But what they didn't know was while they laughed, I worked. While they called it a hobby, I was learning building saving. And while they told stories about my failures, I was quietly preparing to rewrite the script they thought they controlled. They cast me as the embarrassment. But I was about to become the twist in their story they never saw coming. They called it a hobby. Every time I mentioned what I did, building websites, designing apps, consulting for startups, they'd smile politely, then move on. Like I'd said, I spent my days collecting bottle caps. And maybe to them, that's all it ever sounded like. Just Eli being Eli, tinkering, dreaming, playing businessman. But while they dismissed it, I was building something real. I got my first small contract at 24, just $500 to help a bakery set up an online ordering system. I still remember the owner's face when I showed her how to update her menu from her phone. She hugged me. That job led to another. Then another. I didn't brag. I didn't post about it. I just worked, quietly, relentlessly. I spent weekends learning code and nights studying SEO while my family laughed at dinner about how I still lived like a college kid. I lived small on purpose, saved what I could, reinvested into better tools, faster hosting, smarter systems. I automated processes. I took on retainer clients. I scaled. At 28, I launched a SaaS product that filled a niche no one saw coming, a digital inventory tracker for local food trucks. It blew up during the pandemic. I hired my first contractor, then a second. I still didn't tell anyone, not because I was hiding it, but because no one ever asked. And I was done volunteering my worth to people who only saw failure in non-traditional paths. The irony was, I never needed their applause. I just wanted their curiosity, their interest. One single "how's your work going?" Eli. Instead they called it luck, or worse, fake. So I stopped offering updates. Let them assume I was still drifting, still that oddball clinging to pipe dreams. All while my striped dashboard told another story. I remember one Christmas Daniel joked that I should get a real job so Mom could finally be proud of both her sons. I just nodded and refilled his wine glass. Meanwhile, I had 6 figures in investments and a product on track for acquisition talks. They never saw it, because they never looked. But invisibility has its power. No one bothers to block a spotlight they don't think you'll ever reach. And when it finally shines on you, it blinds everyone who laughed in the dark. It wasn't even my birthday. It was Carly's, her 35th, and Mom had pulled out all the stops. A rented vineyard catered hors d'oeuvres, a slideshow set to soft piano music, and even a guy with an acoustic guitar, strumming covers of Taylor Swift. Everyone was glowing, clinking glasses, posing for selfies under fairy lights. And I was there like always, holding folding chairs, carrying wine boxes, helping the event planner hang the banner just right. I didn't expect much. I never do. But I didn't expect the slap in the face either. We were halfway through dinner when Daniel stood up to make a toast. To Carly, he said, raising his glass proof that being responsible pays off. Laughter erupted. Aunt Cheryl clapped like he'd solved world hunger. Then Mom leaned in with a smile too wide and said, "And to Eli for keeping us guessing." Another wave of laughter. I felt my face get hot. I looked down at my plate where my fork trembled slightly in my hand. It wasn't the joke. I was used to those. It was the timing, the moment of it. My existence served as comic relief in someone else's celebration. Again. So I smiled like always, bit my tongue like always. And after dessert, I helped stack empty plates and thanked the staff like always. Daniel passed me near the vans holding his wine glass with that same smug expression he's worn since we were kids. "Always the help, huh?" he muttered. I didn't respond, not with words. But something shifted in me. That night, I drove home in silence. No music, no podcasts, just the low hum of my tires and the louder roar in my head. And I realized something: I didn't have to stay in this role. The quiet one, the punchline, the good sport. I wasn't 19 anymore. I wasn't broke. I wasn't stuck. I had options. I had resources. I had a life they didn't even know existed. And maybe it was time they didn't know. That night wasn't the breaking point because of what they said, it was because of what they refused to see. I was no longer the help. I was the one about to host a party they'd never be invited to. I signed the closing papers on a Thursday morning, just me, my real estate agent, and a notary who smiled when she slid over the final document. 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, a smart kitchen that could practically cook for me, a backyard that caught the sunset in a way that made everything look golden. I didn't post it. I didn't text anyone. I just drove home, sat on the living room floor with a slice of takeout pizza, and let it sink in. This was mine. No one handed it to me. No one knew. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt free. That freedom I wanted to market. So, I threw a party. But this time, the guest list wasn't automatic. No default send to family checkbox. No obligation invites. I went through my phone carefully, intentionally. I invited people who'd seen me, not just tolerated me. Former clients who became friends. Colleagues who backed me when no one else did. My first mentor who once gave me $500 and a push when I was broke and scared. Julie who always said, "One day, Eli, they're going to regret sleeping on you." I booked a caterer, set up string lights across the backyard, hired a friend's band. I even bought giant novelty scissors and a ribbon for the front door, a ribbon cutting for my new life. And I made the Facebook event private, not invisible, just hidden from the people who'd never bothered to ask how I was doing or what I was building. It was petty, I'll admit it, but it felt honest. The night of the party, laughter filled the house. Real laughter, not the at-your-expense kind. Toasts were made, hugs were tight. At one point, someone shouted speech, and I gave one brief, grateful stunned at how different it felt to be celebrated instead of tolerated. Julie snapped a photo of me on the balcony, arms raised, city lights behind me. She posted it with the caption, "From outcast to empire builder." That post went viral in all the wrong and right ways. I woke up the next morning to a storm of missed calls. Mom, Daniel, Carly, even Aunt Cheryl. But the most chilling message came from my cousin, Jenna. So, no invite for family. And just like that, the real party began. The storm didn't roll in with thunder. It came in with tags. Julie's photo of me, arms raised on the balcony, was supposed to be a fun memory for the people who showed up. I didn't expect it to travel, but that night it got shared, then reshared, then commented on by people I hadn't spoken to in years. It wasn't the photo that stung them, it was the visibility. Under the post were comments like, "Wait, this is your house, Eli, this is amazing," from background character to main event. Buried deep between those glowing words were the ones that set it off. "Why weren't we invited? Your family should have been there. This is really hurtful, Eli." And just like that, my notifications became a battlefield. First came the guilt grenades, from Carly. "I guess some people forget who raised them." From Mom, "You embarrassed us. You made us look like strangers." Even Daniel, king of mockery himself, wrote, "Guess that fake job paid off. Would have been nice to get a heads up." No one asked what I was celebrating. No one said congrats, just shocked judgment and veiled threats disguised as hurt feelings. I didn't respond, not to the texts, not to the comments, not even to the voicemail from Aunt Cheryl who said, "Family comes first, Eli." Always. What they didn't realize was that's exactly what I had done. I did put family first, just not the one I was born into. I chose the people who chose me, the ones who cheered my milestones, not mocked them. But silence has a power they weren't ready for. So, 2 days later, Daniel showed up unannounced at my gate. And he wasn't smiling. He stood at the gate like he owned it, like we were still kids and he'd barged into my room just to prove he could. Only this time, he needed my permission. And I took my time giving it. When I finally buzzed him in, Daniel drove up slow, scanning the house like he couldn't quite believe it was real. His button-down shirt was still stiff from work, his watch still gleaming like a status symbol, but his face said, uninvited. I opened the door before he knocked. So, he said, folding his arms across his chest, "This is real." "Yeah," I replied, leaning casually against the frame. "You could have told us," he added. "When's the last time you asked?" He scoffed. "Come on, Eli, we're family." That word used to buckle me. Not anymore. "You called my business a hobby," I said. "You said I'd never get anywhere unless I followed your exact playbook. Every holiday you made me the joke. You all did." Daniel's face twitched like he wanted to protest, but couldn't. "We were just teasing." "No. You were conditioning me to think I was less." Inside, we walked into the kitchen, sunlight pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows. The counters gleamed. The espresso machine hissed softly behind me. This wasn't a flex. It was a boundary. "Look," Daniel said, glancing around Mom's upset. "Carly, too. You embarrassed them." I almost laughed. Embarrass them? They'd branded me the family embarrassment for years. Now, I had a home, they couldn't dismiss a life that didn't fit their narrative, and suddenly I was the villain for not including them in the credits. "They're upset," I said calmly, because I stopped waiting for their permission to be proud of myself. He leaned on the island studying me. "So what now? You cutting us off?" I looked him in the eye. "No, I'm just choosing who gets to belong in my life. It's not about revenge, Dan. It's about peace." He flinched. "You sound bitter, and you still sound entitled." Daniel stared for a moment like he didn't recognize me. Then, without another word, he walked out. But before he reached his car, he turned back one last time and said, "This won't last." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because I already knew what would last: my peace, my purpose, and the choice to never again open the door just because someone demanded to be let in. 3 days after Daniel left, a thick cream-colored envelope showed up at my door. No return address, just my name written in my mother's looping cursive. I knew that handwriting too well, the same one that had once left notes in my lunchbox. Then years later, scribbled passive-aggressive reminders on the fridge. I almost didn't open it. I held it over the trash once. But curiosity is a powerful thing. Inside were 5 handwritten pages. No greeting, no warmth. Just the first sentence I don't even know where to begin. She wrote that she was hurt. That seeing the photos of my housewarming party online, my friends the champagne tower, the speeches felt like being erased. She said it was like I'd chosen strangers over family. By page 2, the tone shifted. She reminded me how I was always dramatic even as a child, how I used to storm off whenever someone made a joke. She called the years of teasing family humor, said Daniel and Carly didn't mean it, that it was just the way our family worked tough love thick skin. But to me, it sounded like a justification, not regret, not reflection. Then came the part I expected but still wasn't ready for. "Your cousin Jenna mentioned your company is growing. That's wonderful. Maybe we could sit down and talk about how to support each other financially or otherwise. You've always been so good with money." There it was, not an apology, a request. Buried beneath the compliments was a message I'd heard all my life. "You're only valuable when you can do something for us." She ended with a soft guilt trip. "We miss you. You're still part of this family." And a line that sat in my chest like a stone. "Let us come by the house. We'd love to take a few pictures, show everyone how proud we are." That's what it came down to. Appearances, validation, not reconciliation. That night I didn't call, didn't text. I scanned the letter, then took it out to the fire pit. I watched the pages curl into smoke, the ink twisting into the night sky. Because love doesn't ask for photos when it's finally convenient. Love asks what it broke and how to rebuild it. I agreed to meet Carly at a coffee shop halfway between my place and the neighborhood we grew up in. Neutral ground. I chose a spot with wide windows and no memories, nothing that could sneak up on me while she stirred her latte. She was already there when I arrived, dressed like she was headed to church, safe proper, a little rehearsed. She looked up when I walked in, eyes searching my face for a clue. Relief flickered when I gave a nod and sat down. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I replied. We sat in silence for a while. She stirred her drink, tracing the edge of the cup, like she was trying to organize the apology in her head. Finally, she spoke. "Look, I know we've been awful. I won't pretend otherwise. We laughed when we should have listened. You were doing things we didn't understand, so we mocked it instead of asking. I just listened. I didn't interrupt. Because this wasn't about defending herself. It was about whether I could believe her." I think she continued. "A lot of it was jealousy. You didn't follow the script. You didn't need approval. That scared people." That part surprised me, her saying it aloud. But what hit harder was what came next. "But, Eli, when you shut us out, when you posted the party, the house, the interviews, you made us look like strangers." I looked straight at her. "That's because you were. You became strangers to me, long before I stopped talking. You just never noticed." She blinked fast, then nodded. "So, is that it? Are we just cut off?" "No," I said steady, "but the terms have changed." I told her no more jokes at my expense, no more family roles that shrink me to a punchline, no more showing up when there's something to gain. If she wanted to be in my life, it had to be as an equal, with respect, with care, with intention. She didn't argue, she didn't cry, she just whispered, "Okay, I hear you." We talked for another 20 minutes, nothing warm, but real. And when she left, I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel vindication. I felt relief. Like I had finally reclaimed something that had been mine all along, my voice, my boundaries, my worth. That night after Carly left, I stood alone on my balcony's city lights glowing beneath me, the quiet hum of a life I built surrounding me. I thought about all the years I spent trying to earn a seat at their table. All the times I watered myself down just to fit into a family that only saw me as a footnote. But something had shifted. Finally, I wasn't asking to be chosen anymore. Because here's the truth. When you stop begging for love, you start building it in better places. My friends, my mentors, the colleagues who clapped, when I spoke at that tech conference, they didn't ask me to prove my worth first. They just showed up. They celebrated without qualifiers. And that's the message I want to leave you with. You don't have to explain your success to people who dismissed your struggle. You don't owe softness to those who called you too much or too different. And you definitely don't need to invite people into your peace just because they missed the journey that built it. Sometimes the greatest peace comes not from a fight, but from a quiet, confident boundary. So, if you've ever been the black sheep, the odd one out the punchline at every gathering, maybe this is your moment too. And if this story resonated with you, there's more. Stick around, subscribe, because the next chapter, it's not about them. It's about finally choosing yourself.